Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. I'm your host, Nick Friesen, current sports writer at the Enid News and Eagle. This episode of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show is brought to you by Kinley's Tanning and Boutique in Enid. From custom game day tees and boutique fashion to tanning and red light therapy, they've got everything you need to look good and feel even better. Stop by 2108 West Willow Road or follow online at kinleyscreations.com. Make sure you do what you usually do on Spotify and YouTube on the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. On YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on that bell for notifications so you never miss a video or a podcast. And then on Spotify, make sure you're following the page Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show so you never miss a video or podcast on there as well. Alrighty, we have a fun show planned ahead for you, so let's get right into Northwest Oklahoma Sports. So for this first segment of this edition of Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show, it's high school football once again. Small slate of games in Northwest Oklahoma. You know, a lot of these teams that played week 0 are taking the bye week this week. So I think for our area, the Enid News and Eagle, we only had like 8 to 10 games. I can't remember, but game I covered this week was Pioneer and Seiling. Thought it was going to be a closer game than what I expected, but Seiling came away with a 54-6 win over Pioneer. Just a dominating game from Seiling. 3 takeaways from this game. Pioneer was averaging over 300 rushing yards per game coming into this contest. And they did it against some quality opponents with Drumright, Cherokee, and Timberlake. You know, Timberlake, Class C runner-up last year. Cherokee, going to be a formidable opponent in Class B2. But Seiling just stopped them from the get-go. I know that Pioneer had 99 rushing yards for the game, but 56 of those came on one run with Oliver Silva with a 56-yard touchdown run for Pioneer in that game. But, they came into the contest wanting to stop the run, and they did just that with, just dominating the line of scrimmage against Pioneer. I know, Branson Doyle was out for Pioneer and everything, so he's another running threat for the Mustangs that could have, brought some life if he got a chance to play and everything. But the Seiling just took over and dominated the line of scrimmage, like I said. So even when Seiling dominated the line of scrimmage, they had over 300 rushing yards in the contest for themselves. And that's my next point is Rush Hunt was dominant for the Wildcats. He had 4 rushing touchdowns in the contest. I think he had 45-yard rushing touchdown, 30-yard rushing touchdown, 35, and then 12 for the rushing touchdown. So he was just dominant in the game. And one thing I noticed is once he finally gets going, and he said it after the game, he thought he started out slow in the first quarter, trying to just getting his feet wet against that Pioneer defense, which is good. I mean, they can stop the run when they want to, and they are a physical bunch out there. But, once he got going in that second quarter, he was just flat out dominant. And I noticed once he breaks that first tackle in the middle of the defense, it's over. He's going to go score. He had over 200 rushing yards in the contest, and he was just, his usual self for the Wildcats. And, he wasn't the only one. Blake Chain, the quarterback, had 3 rushing touchdowns all coming in the first quarter, so he did his part as well. So it was overall just dominant rushing attack just from both sides of the ball, like these passing yards for them. Pioneer had 20 passing yards. Seiling had 9 passing yards. So it just, once Seiling found out what they were going to do and what was successful, they just stayed to it. And, good job on them because, you don't need to mix anything up or put any like trick plays or, different schemes or anything. If you can run the football effectively at the start, then just stay with it. And that's what they did. And so congratulations to Seiling. One other thing that I noticed is their senior leadership is amazing. Some of these guys have been playing for Coach Gary Manuel at Seiling since they were in 2nd or 3rd grade. I know Rush told me after the game that he's been coached by Gary Manuel since like the 3rd grade. So basically since elementary school, Gary Manuel has been their head coach. And it's been awesome just to see them grow as a team and, Gary mentioned that to me after the game. That it's just been awesome to get to coach them and see them, mature as people and as players, and just to see them improve and everything. So here's Coach Gary Manuel after the win. Just how awesome it is to get to coach these group of seniors that have really been in his life since his coaching life since he first started coaching them in elementary school. So here's Coach Gary Manuel after the win.
It's been a blessing, most of my senior class, I've coached these guys since they've been in third grade. I've had them. I've actually coached Rush is my nephew. I've actually coached him since he started playing for me in the second grade. So I've been coaching him a long time, and it's nice to we have a great group of seniors, and they do a really good job of leading our football team.
You got a bye week next week, just conditioning and just focusing on yourselves on the bye week?
Conditioning and getting healthy and getting ready for, district play. I know we got another tough game coming up. We got off week, and we play the number one team in Big B. But, our main focus is getting ready for district play, and because that's what's important for us right now is getting off to – we got to get off to a good start in district.
So it's like Coach Manuel said, he's literally seen these seniors grown up right in front of his eyes, both as players and as people, and they have just, matured and as just people and players as well. And he said he's just blessed, and rightfully so. He's got a great team this year. They're going to compete once again in Class B2. So they should be another threat for the gold ball this season. We're going to go through some other scores. Covington Douglas won 44-6 over Cashion JV on Thursday. Kind of a makeshift game with some, situations with Covington's schedule last week with some other teams not being able to play and everything. So took the bye week last week, and now they played this week. So congratulations to Covington Douglas on the win. Garber 28, Depew 22 in that game. A side note on this one, shout out Caden Ramsey for Garber. 5 interceptions in that game. You don't see that a lot anywhere. You don't see that at all, period, anywhere, in any level of football. So, congratulations to Caden Ramsey and the Garber Wolverines on that win. OBA 16, Gary 6. See, and then here's another one. This game I went to, Seiling and Pioneer. I thought it was going to be a closer game, but it didn't end up happening. O'Keene, and then here's another one. O'Keene 53, Waukoma 8. I thought both of those games were going to be a lot closer, but it was just, once Seiling, jumped on Pioneer, it was over because they're a good team and they know how to, once they have momentum, they're going to sustain the momentum. And so O'Keene did that too against Waukoma tonight. So O'Keene with a 53-8 win over Waukoma. Punk Creek Hunter takes the Grant County rivalry against Medford 20-16. That's 5 in a row for the Panthers in a county rivalry. So congratulations to the Panthers of Pond Creek Hunter. Drumride 52, Canton 12. Kingfisher gets the big win over Bridge Creek 45-12. And then Mangum dominates Watonga 55-0. And then here's some of the other teams that are on byes this week: Alva, Cherokee, Chisholm, Enid, Fairview, Hennessy, Kremlin, Hillsdale, Timberlake. We're all on byes this week. So, it was a small slate of games this week in high school football for Northwest Oklahoma. And, it was just a good slate of games for some of these teams that are needing to play and, keeping their legs fresh and everything. But I'm sure, some of these teams like Pioneer and Waukoma and O'Keene and everyone will pick up their bye weeks later on in the year. But those were those games this week in week 3 of high school football. Next week we'll have a full slate of games. So congratulations to all the teams that won this week in Northwest Oklahoma. So now we're going to go to the college route for the second segment in this show. And we're going to start with Oklahoma State. Congratulations, Cowboys. You just got beat by the whole Golden Hurricane, who haven't won in Oklahoma State since 1951. Tulsa takes the 19-12 win over Oklahoma State on Friday night. Not much to say here, except it was just too little too late for the Cowboys to get going on offense. And they kind of just sputtered out of the gate in the first half against the Golden Hurricane. It's kind of crazy to see Dominic Richardson lead the Golden Hurricane in rushing with 146 yards. And then the one receiving touchdown for Tulsa tonight was by another OSU transfer in Mr. Presley, Braylon Presley. I don't know why I just blanked on his name for no reason there. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, I mean, listen, a couple things from here is it time? Is it just time to let him go? Mike Gundy? Is it time? I don't know. They might need to wait for the end of the year. I don't see a reason why. Because, I mean, even with, sputtering in the first half, they still had a lot of success in the second half with, 218 passing yards and 185 rushing yards for the game. Most of that came in the second half. And most of the 403 total yards for the game came in the second half. So they did find something that was working. But for the fact of that, they can only put up 9 points in the second half when you have all that success on offense and everything. You got to find it, man. You got to find a way to put up some points whenever you sustain those drives on offense, whether that's, and when I mean points, I mean touchdowns. That's what they need right now. They got the field goal thing figured out. They need the touchdowns. And because what I just don't understand why they can't, when they get all the way down there, they just like sputter out and it's a field goal right there. Shout out Rodney Fields Jr. for Oklahoma State. He had 113 yards rushing in the contest. So, I mean, they found some life in the running game. I think they averaged, over 5 yards to carry, which is something that they've been really struggling at, going into contests this year is how are they going to figure out how to run the football? And how are they going to, get that offensive line to get a push and get a move on some defensive linemen and everything. And so they found that. I mean, the recipe for success, I think, is Zane Flores not throwing 40 passes in a game. I think they would like to keep that under 20 probably. But yeah, I think it's time for just Mike Gundy to retire at the end of the year. It's just not working anymore. This the system that the culture and everything. It's just not working anymore. They need someone else in there. So that's really all I have to say about that game. I mean, shout out Tulsa going in there after, last week's loss to Navy and everything and going in there to OSU and getting your first win since 1951. Trey Lamb, man, he's got some things going right at Tulsa and, he had some stuff to say after the game with, Dominic Richardson. He said on the broadcast after the game in the interview that they told Dominic he wasn't good enough to play at Oklahoma State. Who knows if that's true because Dominic Richardson was pretty good whenever he was playing at Oklahoma State. So, and they did use him some, but he's got things rolling there in Tulsa. And so shout out to them. Shout out to the Golden Hurricane for getting your first win there. 1951. I think it's their first win against OSU since 1998. So the Turnpike Classic goes to Tulsa this year, which is just bizarre. I didn't want to say I expected what happened tonight because I thought OSU would still win. But I did expect them just to, play flat in that first half. And, Tulsa jumped out to a 16-3 lead at the end of the half. And, it was ultimately too much for Oklahoma State to come back from. So, shout out to Tulsa. OSU, you got some things to figure out before next week's opponent. Whether that's coaching changes or just philosophy changes on offense and defense. But, whatever. Shout out to Tulsa and shout out to the Golden Hurricane. So now we're going to flip over to OU's contest against Auburn. A little bit of a revenge game for Mr. Jackson Arnold as he travels back to Norman, where he first started his collegiate career with the Sooners. It's not a fun season last year, so he decided to transfer to Auburn. Played pretty well so far this season. That's one of my keys going into this game. Jackson Arnold's going to have to play amazing for them to have a chance in this game. I think Auburn's going to want to try and establish the run. I think OU's depth at the defensive line with Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson and David Stone and a bunch of other guys, they're just going to stop the run easily. So it's going to come down to the hands of Jackson Arnold. And usually That can sometimes be good. That can sometimes be bad. Last year was more bad than good. But we'll see. I think he's in a better fit this year, both physically and mentally. Eric Singleton Jr. is going to be a weapon for him this year. That guy's a stud. So I expect big things from them. But he's going to have to play amazing against that OU defense. So my second key, R. Mason Thomas is going to be out with he's dealing with the targeting penalty last week, so he's going to have to sit out a half. Who's going to step up in his place? Dominic Williams is a good example. David Stone, Jaden Jackson, PJ Adebore, a bunch of other guys, and that just goes Marvin Jones Jr. He's on the depth chart, but who knows if he'll play or not. But he's just another one of those guys that depth there is just amazing because that gives you so many different, options on the defensive line and the defensive end. So, I mean, a collective of people can, step up and replace R. Mason Thomas for a half. And then once you get him in the second half, you unleash him right away because that's a fresh guy ready to go in that second half. And you unleash him right from the get-go in that second half. Third key, I'm going to stick with OU defense. It's kind of bizarre that, they've been playing this well over this stretch of the first 3 games. They don't have a turnover. That's where it changes in this game. I mentioned Jackson Arnold's going to have to play amazing, and they're going to have to rely on him. And that's where most of the turnover opportunities can happen is when you get him uncomfortable in the quarterback in the pocket, and get him uncomfortable on the run, make him scramble while also, taking your proper angles on the scrambles and everything. Get him uncomfortable, he's going to make some dumb decisions. And I think this is the week where the OU defense finally gets their first turnover of the week and, really establishes themselves as a true – they're already dominant, but once they start establishing and getting turnovers, that means they're a true dominant defense. So I like OU in this one. I like them to, 6.5, 7. I like them to take that, cover that, maybe win 33-17, 31-18, something like that. They're going to have a solid showing from just everyone. I know the offensive line's kind of just, in a freaky situation with the injuries and stuff at center, especially. Like, it's a makeshift center problem out at OU so far this weekend. And maybe a makeshift line. So they got some things to deal with as well. Auburn's got some things to deal with. Jackson Arnold's going to have to play amazing. But I like the Sooners in this one. I like them to move to 4-0 on the year and get to that bye week and then play Kent State. Obviously, that's just basically another bye week. Then you got the big one, Texas. That'll be a huge matchup, especially with how, everything's been going on at Texas. It's a weird situation down there, too. But yeah, I like this. I like OU to get the win over Auburn this Saturday. So now we're to the Garfield County report of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. This is where I pick some teams in Garfield County and I talk about them, talk about how their season's going and how everything's going for the team. And I'm going to stick with Enid softball in this one. They've been dominant in this latter part of the season. They have 11 straight wins. They picked up 4 district wins this week. Started out Monday with a big win, and it's a huge win, emotional win in the district for Enid as they took the 7-2 win over Edmond Memorial. Gracie Combrink was dominant in the circle, 7 innings, 5 hits, 2 runs, 9 strikeouts. She had a double and 2 RBIs at the plates. She really helped herself on both sides and everything. It's a nice bounce back win because Edmond Memorial won the first matchup, but they won by 4. Enid comes out, they win this one, and they win by 5. So now they jump the Bulldogs, second place in the district now, and in a prime opportunity to host a regional, which is always big in postseason softball. It's been awesome. The offense has been clicking for the Enid Pacers. I mean, in that game, Cassidy Patterson, 2 RBIs. Like I said, Gracie Combrink, 2 RBIs. Annie Rader had 2 hits in the contest. It's just been awesome for them. And then they played Eisenhower the next night, and they played them in doubleheader, and they won both of those games. Then I asked Chris Jensen after the game, and I was like, how awesome is it? Just they didn't miss a beat after that emotional win against Edmond Memorial, and they came out and dominated against Eisenhower. And It's like you said. I mean, they didn't get home until probably 12:31, and it's hard to sleep whenever you get an emotional win like that in softball and in any sport. But it's like you said, they came out and took care of business right away against Eisenhower. Put themselves in some good situations at the plate, and just dominated the contest, both contests from start to finish. Get to Norman North on Thursday. They dominate them at Norman North. 9-0 win over Norman North, and Gracie Combrink, 7 innings, 1 hit, 7 strikeouts. So a one hitter for Gracie Combrink. She had 2 RBIs as well. She's been on tear at both sides of the offense and pitching. Then they play in the Tonkawa Festival Friday. They win 10-0 over Pawnee, and Tonkawa they win 7-3. I want to give a shout out to Carson Shane in those games. She was, a bright spot at the plate, a force at the plate. She had 2 RBIs in the game against Pawnee. She had a double in the contest. Gracie Combrink had a home run, a 2-run home run in the contest. You get to Tonkawa. She's dominant as well. Carson Shane. 3 RBIs, 2 doubles in the contest against Tonkawa. So everyone's finding their moments for the Enid Pacers. Everyone's dominant at the plate for them, no matter what spot in the lineup. But you always see one of these 1 or 2 players that have just been dominant for them each week. And Carson Shane and Gracie Combrink were those. Andy Rader was solid as well. Kinley Adams, Cassidy Patterson. I just named like 5 or 6. And, they've all been dominant at points of the season. Everyone has just found their stride at the plate, and it's awesome to see. And it's something that you like to see as you get towards postseason play, which they are in prime position to host a regional tournament. And I'm just telling you right now, if they get to host a regional tournament, that Pacer Field's going to be rocking. They always have great crowds at Pacer Field, no matter who they're playing, whatever. I just know the fans are going to bring it there, and I'm ready for it. I'm ready to cover that if it happens, and I hope it happens because that'll be an awesome event to cover, just the whole regional tournament aspect, and possibly making a state tournament. So it'll be awesome, but they got to get through their back half of the district slate, with Westmore and Choctaw still to play and a couple other teams. But I like their chances to host a regional tournament, and I like their chances to make a state tournament. They have all the ingredients and tools they need to make one. So shout out Enid Softball. Y'all been killing it this back half of the season. So keep doing what you're doing, and good luck the rest of the way. And hopefully we get to host. I don't say we. Hopefully y'all get to host a regional tournament this postseason. So I'm going to stick with softball in this next part of the Garfield County Report because we actually do have postseason play next week. Fast pitch small school postseason, their district tournaments begin next week. So good luck to all the teams in Northwest Oklahoma. I know there's going to be a ton of action in Northwest Oklahoma. I know Crumlin Hillsdale gets to host a regional with Mohawk Rando and Scheidler. Waukomis will get to host a district. Covington Douglas will get to host a district. Drummond's going to host a district. Seiling's going to host a district. Pioneer's hosting one, which, by the way, I will be at the Pioneer Festival Saturday morning. I'll be covering, just taking some photos and covering some of the games there at the Pioneer Festival. That should be fun because there are a lot of great teams there. Oklahoma Bible Academy is getting to host a regional. Garber's getting to host a regional. Karchi. Bunch of Northwest Oklahoma teams are getting to host. So that's awesome to see. Couple of teams I like. Waukomis and Drummond are obviously one of the 2 favorite teams that I think that can make a deep push in the playoffs and hopefully make a state tournament bid. Oklahoma Bible Academy and Pioneer, a couple of the teams that I think that can upset some people and make that deep run like Waukomis and Drummond and make a state tournament. That'd be awesome to see for both of them, Pioneer and OBA. Seiling's gonna be one of the favorites to make it to the state tournament. Obviously, they're a dynamic bunch. They're a solid group this year. Crumlin Hillsdale has a shot to make it. Covington has a shot to make it. Just to make all of these teams have shots to just make a solid run in the postseason, and every game they're going to be a threat. against their opponent. And that's what's awesome about Northwest Oklahoma fast pitch softball is like all these games are going to be close because every team is competitive out here, no matter, what class or whatever. And obviously you got Waukomis and Drummond, and then, for higher classes, you got Chisholm and Eden and Alba. Just awesome to see the talent and, the attributes that these girls possess at fast pitch softball at the high school level. And I'm looking for some big time matchups this year. Obviously, when you get to host, that just sets up your path to, make a state tournament that much easier. Obviously, Waukomis and Drummond are looking to get there, and a bunch of other teams are. I like those two, like a couple other teams, but just make sure y'all get out there next week. Thursday and Friday are when they start, or when most of the district tournaments start. Early some of them are like lunchtime is when they begin. So make sure y'all get out there during your lunch break, or if you're off, go out there and support some fast pitch softball. It's going to be fun. Postseason softball around here is always awesome. You see a lot of great action too. So district tournaments next week. Make sure y'all tune out to them. Make sure you go out to Waukomis or Drummond or wherever. Another host site, OBA, Pioneer, Kremlin, Covington, whatever. So make sure y'all go get your softball fix this week, and make sure you go to support for your Northwest Oklahoma softball teams. So now it's time for my rant of the week. This is a topic I pick in the sports world, not really Northwest Oklahoma, and I rant and give my take on it. I'm going to stick with the Texas Rangers. Pivotal 3-game series that Jolts has had against the Houston Astros. Not only for the wild card spot, for a silver boot, something y'all haven't won in years, and I mean years. Y'all come out flat. 6-3 loss to the Astros, 6-5 loss to the Astros, 5-2 loss to the Astros. So you sweep the series. Not gonna cut it. And it doesn't even matter because you're not even gonna make the postseason this year because you screwed it up against Houston in that series. I think I'm more sad about losing the silver boot because you had an opportunity to win the silver boot in the first time in I think 10 years, if I'm right. And y'all just don't perform to what y'all been performing these last couple of games. But it doesn't matter. Y'all are not going to make the postseason. So, you know how admins can post the thank you fans post right after their season ends, but they don't make the postseason, so that's when they do it. The Rangers can go ahead and do that right now. They can do it tomorrow if they wanted to because they're not making the postseason. I think they're 5 games out with 8 games left. So, not going to work. They're going to literally have to go on an 8-game winning streak to win, to make it even a shot in a wild card, but they're not going to. So, the season's a wrap. Get back next year, improve in the off season. But yeah, shout out to the Texas Rangers. You're my rant of the week for totally screwing up your chances at the postseason and then at the silver boot against the Houston Astros. So that'll do it for another edition of the Northwest Oklahoma Sports Show. We'll be back next week with a full slate of high school football in Northwest Oklahoma. I think there's only a couple teams on byes, but most of the teams that we cover at the Union News and Eagle, they'll be in action next week. Make sure you go out and check out some district tournaments next week. That'll be awesome. Postseason softball is awesome. Postseason high school softball and fast pitch is amazing. If y'all get a chance to go check out Enid softball, y'all should do it. They're a pretty solid bunch. They're awesome to cover and awesome to watch. So make sure you go out and check out some softball this week. Talked about OU and Auburn. That'll be a big-time matchup in the SEC for their opener. We'll see about OSU and Mike Gundy. That's going to be an amazing 24 to 40 hours to see what they do. But do what you always do, Northwest Oklahoma sports fans. Go out and show your support for Northwest Oklahoma sports teams.